So now we come to part 3 of polarity and gender. So briefly to recap, in the symbolism of tarot, as it was in the ancient mysteries, the self-conscious level of awareness is depicted as a male, a human man, and the subconscious as a woman, as a female human, for the reasons that were explained elsewhere. Now, in most cases, the subconscious mind and the self-conscious mind aren't on talking terms in most people. But tarot, the cards of the ageless wisdom, depict how things are meant to be. And so you will know from the Lover's card, the Adam, the male, is looking at Eve, the female. He is gazing into her eyes, which are lifted above the clouds, which he can't see through, where the archangel Raphael is shining. And so he sees in the image of her eyes the image of the angel. That's how higher consciousness works, particularly in issues like trance. The self-conscious mind enters into trance, into union with the subconscious mind, and there it picks up what's being relayed from the higher levels. And as this becomes developed, so the two aspects of consciousness become more and more attuned, and certainly equally respected. And so you remember from the Lover's card where the two are looking at each other. The next stage is shown by card 20, the Judgment. Again you see the male and female. They're coloured grey. The choice of grey, of course, is neutral. It's a perfect blend of white and black. It's to show that now the self-conscious mind and the subconscious mind are in accord. They are working together. And now even the self-conscious mind, symbolised by the man, can now see the higher self, represented here by the Archangel Gabriel. And so these are these stages of consciousness, and now they've given birth to superconsciousness, or to a stage of enlightenment. Here in this card, it's represented by the child who has his back to us. And it's done as a child because at this stage, the superconsciousness is still only infant. It's still in development. But nevertheless, this is still a higher stage than most people work with in their daily lives. So this is where the imagery of gender is used simply as a label for the types of consciousness. But then there's a higher stage still, and this can be effectively represented by two cards. Firstly, it's being used by the Fool. The Fool, who, as you've heard me say before, in the old days was called the alchemist. After all, alchemy is working upon one's own consciousness. Lead is simply a metaphor for ignorance, for dullness, inert, earthliness, whereas gold is a metaphor for enlightenment. Gold doesn't tarnish, gold reflects the light. So alchemy too is really a metaphor for the development of consciousness. Now it is said of the Fool card that all the cards are contained in the Fool. And as you've heard me say also before, the old name for this card is the Alchemist. Now if we look closely, firstly, the Fool could be thought of as a young person. Tradition says that actually it is the hermaphrodite. Now please be careful here. Hermaphrodite here has got nothing to do with changing your body organically or surgery or chemicals. That's your own decision, but that certainly isn't what the sages meant by it. They use it to mean the fusion of the subconsciousness and the self-consciousness into a state of enlightened, illumined awareness. And you can see the background and the white sun of Keter shining directly down on the alchemist, on the fool. And the sages say that the fool, the image of the fool, is actually androgynous, or what others would call a hermaphrodite. Again, as you know by now, not literally, meaning even subconsciousness and self-consciousness have now fused so perfectly that they have become the enlightened state. Remember, this is the first card in the major arcana. And for those Kabbalists amongst you, this is the path leading from Keter itself down the lightning flash of creation. But I want you to look closely here to the headdress of the fool. You see there's a red feather. This red feather is meant to be the wing feather of the red eagle. The eagle is one of the symbols of Kundalini in Western practice. From the saying in Isaiah, "They that wait upon the divine shall renew their strength. They shall rise up as eagles." And so the eagle feather means that the fiery power has been sublimated and is now in the crown centre, hence the feather. But there's also wearing a laurel wreath around the fool's head. You will know from classical things, or at least having seen a film like Ben-Hur, that the Greeks and Romans crowned their victors, not just victors of sports, but victors also of writing the best play, being the best singer. Anything of excellence, of being the best, was given a laurel wreath. The laurel wreath was because the laurel was sacred to the god Apollo, who was also the god of enlightenment, in a sense. So here the fool is wearing this to show he's a victor. He has attained. But it gets slightly more interesting because the last card in the major arcana is the dancer. The dancer. Notice the dancer is dancing within an oval, within a zero. And the number for the Fool card, you may remember, is 0. What this is showing, this is the final card, this is showing you the inside of the Fool's head. In other words, it's portraying the enlightened consciousness that the Fool has. And so it's equidistant between the 4 holy creatures. They're the 4 elements, the 4 worlds, the 4 realms, the 4 types of humanity. The figure is dancing. Notice it's not touching anything, it's dancing in space. So this is just exactly the same as in Tibetan practice, a sky dancer, a dakini or a daka. The 2 spirals held are to show the solar spiral around the spine and the lunar spiral, Ida, Pingala, as they're called in Sanskrit. And this draped purple scarf. By the way, the shape of the scarf makes the Hebrew letter Kaf, which is assigned to the wheel. So there's an association of being at the centre of things. And again, oral tradition says that the lower part of the scarf conceals male genitalia because this is also the alchemical hermaphrodite, the rebus, the 2-in-1. In other words, these are representing. So this card, to put it quite bluntly, represents the inside of the fool's head. In other words, it's showing us the mind of the fool, the mind of the perfected alchemical sage, the mind of an ipsissimus. I hope this little wander down the pathways of the major arcana on this topic of polarity and gender have been of some use.